On today's show, bold predictions for your Houston Rockets. Where will the Rockets finish in the Western Conference standings? How many wins will they get? And so much more. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way that you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on whatever podcast platform you prefer. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And while you're there, drop us a comment, do a drive-by, just say go Rockets, share your thoughts on the episode. It helps us out so much. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our amazing everydayers. Joining us now for part 2 of our Houston Rockets season preview series, none other than your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore, as well as the podfather himself, Rockets Wire editor and host of the Logger Line podcast, Ben DuBose. You can track him down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks and at Ben DuBose. If you missed our previous episode where we talked about some of the biggest questions facing the Houston Rockets this season, go back and be sure to check that out. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look and making some predictions for this season for the Houston Rockets. We're going to take a look at their win totals, where we think they're going to land in the Western Conference standings. We're going to get into a lot of good stuff on today's episode. So guys, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. First off, I want to make sure that our listeners know I ran that Locked On Rockets survey, and I'm probably going to reference that throughout the episode a little bit. We got a ton of responses to this thing, and it was actually kind of mixed on the reviews as far as where the Rockets would finish as far as their win totals this season. 21% of the voters thought that the Rockets would finish with 50-plus wins. 22% thought they would hit 48 wins. 11.8% thought they would hit 47 wins. And then another 20% thought that they would hit 46 wins. And then about 15% thought they would hit 45 wins. So very few people were like 44 wins or lower. Pretty much the consensus is they're going to hit 45 wins or north of that this season.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, but Vegas wouldn't think it's warranted because I think the over-under is 42.5, 43.5. But I personally think that it is. I think the Rockets are much more immune from injuries than the average team because they are so deep. And I also think that in a Western Conference where so many teams have, aging rosters or guys that are coming off deep Olympic runs. I've got the Team USA shirt on here. The fact the Rockets are deeper and fresher as opposed to a lot of teams they're competing with. The Lakers had LeBron and AD. The Suns had Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. So those are long Olympic runs. We know what Steph Curry did. He's the leader in Golden State. Obviously, the Clippers didn't have any Olympic guys, but they lost Paul George. Kawhi Leonard is uncertain. Who knows when or if he'll be ready to go. So there's so much uncertainty in the middle of that Western Conference. And you add to it a Rockets team that's very deep. Most of its guys didn't play a lot internationally over the summer, so they should be fresher. And just you look at the metrics from last year. Even though the Rockets were 41,
hang on, I just want to point out that Ben disrespected Dylan Brooks in part 1 of our preview series, and then he disrespected him again by saying, it's
they're
okay,
not leaning
Olympic play.
Come on, man. They're not leaning on Dylan the way the Lakers are leaning on LeBron. Come on now. But no, to circle back to the actual point, the metrics will tell you that even though the Rockets were 41-41 last year, they actually graded out like a 45 or 46 win team. And so a lot of us in the fan base going from 22-60 to 41-41 were overjoyed because of the year-on-year improvement, most of any team in the NBA. But actually, statistically, they underachieved a little bit relative to their metrics. And I think it's explainable because there were so many bad habits to shed. They hadn't been good before. So a lot of guys were learning how to close games. And so on paper, it's the kind of team that might not be as good as their metrics because they'll let a few games slip that they probably wouldn't if they had more experience. So you add in a team that's probably better than 41-41 to begin with, and you give them advantages in depth, roster construction, freshness, all those factors. And Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, mid to upper 40s is attainable for this team, especially with how young they are and so many young guys that conceivably can take the next step.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe we'll be a mid-40s team, and it's due to a lot of the points that Ben said. It's due to our depth. We're going to be able to withstand the long schedule with all these guys vying for minutes. We'll have nights where guys are off, and then other guys are on, and they'll just extend their minutes. And all these guys are deserving and can play these minutes and really contribute in a winning manner. And then when you take into consideration all the injuries, the lack of depth for teams like Denver, there's just going to be the up and down nature. It's going to be a bloodbath in the West, and that's going to keep teams kind of even keel. We're going to be right in the mix with all these teams. They're going to be up and down nights across the board for many, many different teams. And every day I feel like I'm hearing about a new injury that for a key starter in a Western conference, a Western contender. And I expect that, unfortunately, to continue for the reasons that Ben pointed out with the Olympics and all of that good stuff. And so as we accrue all of that stuff, the Rockets are in a unique position to kind of rise above that. And if our guys, again, begin incrementally taking steps forward, they'll be, again, better than they were last year. They'll perform, and like Ben said, they underperform their plus minus. And so there's no reason for us to really believe that they actually don't reach 46, 48 wins. And let's just say one of our guys turns into a superstar, which is on the table. Several guys, let's just say 2 or 3 of our guys take tremendous steps forward, like Thompson or Jabari Smith Jr., where these guys vault themselves into high-level impact players that can support stars in Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green. Let's just say Jalen Green finds his off-ball rhythm, and becomes an elite catch-and-shoot player, offering the type of spacing that this team has desperately been needing. And those type of things are very, very realistic outcomes. They're not outlier outcomes for this team to occur. And if any of those things hit, then we're going to be looking at a team pushing 50 wins and could be the sixth or fifth seed in the conference.
And even in the West, look at Oklahoma City going from 40-42 to 57-25 last year. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that level of increase, but could you go from 41-41 to something in the neighborhood of 50? I mean, it would take a lot of breaks, but it's not crazy.
First off, I fully agree with all the points you guys laid out. I'm not even going to bother rehashing them because I think you guys did a fantastic job in that. But what I want to say is I'm going to be the first one to drop a bold prediction here. I've talked about this in person at Rockets games. I've talked about it in group chats, whatever. One of my first bold predictions on this podcast is going to be, I think only one team cracks 50 wins in the Western Conference this year.
Ooh, I think
it's going to be the Thunder.
Okay.
I haven't even checked to see if the math works on this. I want you to know that. But I think only one team cracks 50 wins. It's going to be the Thunder. And then every other subsequent team, there's going to be a bunch of like 49s, 48s, 47s, 46s. I think it's going to be a bloodbath in the West. And I do think the Rockets are going to be firmly in that mix. I am calling, though, my official prediction, 47 wins. That's where I've settled on. I'm settling in at 47 wins, but with the caveat that only one team, the Thunder, is going to break 50 in the West. Madison, give me your predicted win total.
48 wins, and I believe this team will really resemble the Orlando Magic of last year. And I think this first game against I'm blanking.
Hornets.
Hornets, yes. This first game against Charlotte, I feel like Charlotte will be the Rockets of last year, but we'll be the Orlando Magic, and we'll come out poised and ready. Yeah, poised and ready, and really, hand it to them defensively, like really stifling in that manner. And we'll take that leap in that way. But I do think Charlotte will be a good team and take a leap in their own way as well.
They're one of my sneaky favorites in the Eastern Conference for sure. Ben, what's your official win total prediction?
I'll go slightly lower with 46, but I do think that's enough to solidly be in the play-in field. I think the entry bar, for the reasons that Jackson laid out, will be a little lower this year. You'll have teams at 43, 44 wins that get into the play-in mix. I think the bar won't quite be as high. One thing I will push back on, I think a couple of teams do sneak into the 50s, 2 or 3, because as strong as the 2025 draft class is, some of these teams that get into, a situation like Memphis last year are going to be incentivized to, go into tank mode relatively quickly based on the strength of the 2025 draft class. And so that could make this, the top of the West not quite as strong as it looks going in. Don't know exactly who that's going to be going into the season, but that could be a factor in seeking an extra win here or there. But I think 46 wins and 7 or 8 in the West.
Coming up, well, Ben did his thing right there. How dare he? 7 or 8 in the West. Okay, well, we're going to talk a little bit about where the Rockets could finish in the West standings relative to some of their competitions. We had to cover the win totals here, and then Ben jumped the gun on us. We're going to get there, and we're going to get to so many other. There it is. Yeah, that's an elite tease from the original Podfather himself. All right, we're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just your first $5 bet. It's that simple. Just head on over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at all the different odds available, just different division winners, conference winners. Check out their parlay builders, season awards, or just the outright favorites to win the Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs plus 450, the Ravens plus 600, the Lions plus 750, right behind them, the 49ers plus 850, the Bills plus 1100, and then your Houston Texans plus 1300. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, well, even though Ben decided to jump the gun a little bit, and Madison a few moments before that, anyways, let's get into it a little bit here, looking at kind of a quick look at the Western Conference standings. We talked about the win totals here, but what does that mean for the standings in particular? And Rockets fans are pretty bullish on where this team could potentially finish this season. 14% of the voters on the LOR boards bets bracket poll thing voted 5th seed. 14% of voters voted for the 5th seed. 24% of voters said the 6th seed. 22% said the 7th seed. And then 27% chose the 8th seed. There was a handful, like sub 8% who chose 9th seed, and then it got even smaller. There's like 2% of voters chose the 10th seed. So a lot of fans are incredibly bullish on where the Rockets could finish in the standings out west this year. And I think ultimately we got to look at a few different teams, right, to figure out, okay, well, who's going to fade in the standings, right? Because the Rockets and I think the Grizzlies are kind of the two party crashing teams in the Western Conference this year. But if the Rockets and Grizzlies are going to make it in, then you need two teams to fall out. I think the Clippers are the really easy team to pinpoint as a team that's going to not be in the playoff race. Who's the other team that we think is going to fall out of the playoff contention bracket?
It's either going to be New Orleans. I mean, to me, what I rely on is there are a lot of candidates. There are a lot of candidates to fall out. And I think New Orleans is one of those candidates. I think they have some chemistry issues going on with Brandon Ingram. And we know the injury luck that Zion has had this entire season. And they're playing without a center. Herb Jones is their center. And that's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of new roles for different players. I think people underestimate how much Denver is also in jeopardy with, absolutely the lack of depth, losing another key player, Jamal Murray, already having some injury issues. There are a lot of teams, I feel like, of the Los Angeles Lakers as well, with the age of LeBron James and the injury luck or unluck of Anthony Davis. There are a lot of candidates to fall.
It's okay. It's okay. Bronny James has next. It's all good.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry.
Please do not get me started.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, but I think it's a field thing. I think that's what I think it is. I think we can kind of bet on the Clippers. We think they're the most likely, but there's a lot of other guys in the field. I throw in Golden State Warriors as well.
Yeah, I think the Clippers are the team right now that is clearly, until proven otherwise, at the back of this sort of middle pack in the Western Conference, middle of the pack, I should say. And so you've got the Warriors, the Rockets, the Lakers, the Suns, and the Grizzlies. So I think the three teams that were in the playoffs last year, the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Suns, those are the three with the heavy usage Olympic guys that we were discussing earlier. Steph, LeBron, AD, Booker, and KD. I think at least one of those three teams has unforeseen injury issues based on the mileage in the offseason and the age of their core players. So I don't know which it will be, but I just think a deep team like the Rockets that's fresher is going to jump at least one in that tier. And I have the Grizzlies honestly about the same tier as the Rockets going into the year. I think there are a lot of people giving them too much credit because I think what people are forgetting is that the last time the Grizzlies were truly the Grizzlies, the grit and grind, 2/5 of their starting lineup is currently in Houston. Dylan Brooks and Steven Adams. You cannot just assume that they are going to be the exact same Grizzlies as before, especially because Jaren Jackson already has a nagging injury going into the year, and he may not play when the Grizzlies visit Toyota Center on Friday night. That could low-key, even second game of the year, be important, in the standings. So I have the Grizzlies, not saying they're going to be what they were last year. They should certainly be better than that with a healthy jaw, but I don't think you put them in that top tier the way you did 2 years ago when they were grit and grind and everybody was healthy and you had Dylan and Steven. They're not that group anymore. So I have the Grizzlies about the same tier as the Rockets. I think the Rockets jump the Clippers, at least one team in that Warriors, Lakers, Suns tier. That's sort of how I've gotten them to 7 or 8 in my, prediction that I've already given away.
Yeah, I was about to say, you guys already let these slip. So Ben said 7 or 8. Madison, what did you say? Where are you at on where you think they land standings-wise?
This is bold predictions. I think the Rockets will firmly be in the playoffs at number 6.
Ooh, okay.
Bold prediction. If they get to 48 and we think this is going to be a lockjam, if this, you know what I mean, then I think 6 is good enough to get them. 48 is good enough to get them the 6th seed in the playoffs. And like I think it'll be a bloodbath. We'll be stacked together. And like to add to Ben's point about Memphis also like almost overhauled their entire coaching staff. There are a lot of changes going on within that organization. Yes, their top core is still there, but the moving pieces, it's going to take time for those guys to gel and get continuity. And they have a starting rookie center. I think people underestimate how quick they think this team is going to bounce back.
Yeah. Also, one team we didn't mention that I do want to briefly acknowledge is San Antonio, because unlike the Jazz and the Blazers, who are clearly rebuilding, there is a world where if Wemby's truly a top 10 guy in year 2 and Chris Paul somehow stays healthy at 40, then they could, rise up the standings pretty quickly with Pop. However, I think the Rockets catch a scheduling break, getting the Spurs 3 times in the first 8 games. The Spurs will not have Devin Vassell for those games. CP is still going to be integrating. And the Rockets are a team that early on in the year, they should have more advantages than most teams because they bring back almost the entire rotation from last year. So the Rockets, they have more continuity, they have more depth. They should be fresher. If the Rockets can take care of business against the Spurs and get, at least 2 of the 3, maybe all 3, then that can give you a little bit of a buffer in any scenario where, let's say, second half of the year, the Spurs with Wemby becoming a true top 10 guy and, Vassell gets it going. There is a world where the Spurs could get into this consideration, but I think if the Rockets can, take care of business early on, that could give them a little bit of a buffer against that scenario.
I think the Spurs are definitely going to win a lot more games this season. I don't think they're going to win quite enough to get truly into the play-in discussion.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge I don't think it's insane, but I agree
for sure. I'm taking your point, but to pivot it back to what I said earlier about I don't think a team cracks 50 wins. I think a big part of that's going to be the Spurs, who I think are going to finish somewhere in that mid 30 range, like 35 to 37 wins or something. And then if you have that as a team winning 35 or 37 games, in addition to like a couple other teams in the West not even cracking the top 10 bracket of the playoffs, of the play-in tournament, and also winning potentially as many as 40 games, just like the Rockets did last year, 41 and 41, still wasn't good enough to get in the window. I think that's kind of the Western Conference that I'm envisioning this year. Now, since I was the only one that didn't let it slip, I'm predicting 7th seed. That's where I've settled in on. I think the Rockets finish at the top of the play-in bracket. Not quite good enough for Madison, or where Madison's prediction is, and also not quite as hedgy as Ben saying 7 or 8. But
fine, I'll go 8.
Okay, all right. You know what? Fine.
Just so we all have a separate pick.
This is actually kind of crazy because now we're 6, 7, and 8, and then
bidding now.
And then before what we were 48, 46,
46. Yeah, we're like all sandwiched in there together. You know what I should have done? I should have just come in here, been the foil to everything you guys said. I should have been like, nah, the Rockets going to trade everybody. The season's going to be a dumpster fire. The extensions were a bad call. I should have come in with all that type of negative. No, I kid. Look, coming up, we're going to get into some of our other Locked on Rockets board bets, some of the random polls that I threw out there, like where the Rockets are going to rank defensively, whether or not we're going to see all-stars from this squad, who's going to, ultimately win out certain minutes battles throughout the season, as well as we're going to get to a couple more spicy, bold predictions for the year. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, I don't know how I went through ticket buying for games and concerts and stuff before I got my hands on Game Time. It has absolutely streamlined the ticket buying experience. They curate deals to make it so much easier to find the best price on great seats for whatever kind of event you're trying to attend. But my personal favorite feature that they have is their all-in pricing feature. I don't know about you. My least favorite thing when I'm buying tickets for a game, concert, theater event, whatever, is you go through the process, and then at the very, very end, they hit you with like the digital handling fee and the service charges and all that. You end up paying more in fees than you do for your actual tickets. With Game Time, once you download the app, you can toggle on their all-in pricing feature, and they are fully transparent with you from start to finish, so you know exactly how much you're going to be paying. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, guys, let's tackle some of these board bets that I threw out here because I want to do it justice and I want to get through some of these. Let's go with the first one here. Where will the Rockets rank offensively this season? Now, again, last year they were ranked 20th. So the way that I set it up, do you think they're going to finish top 15 or do you think they're going to finish 16th or below? Madison.
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. I'm going to say top 15.
Okay. Ben, what you got?
I think top 15 too.
Okay. I like it. I think it's going to be tough for them not to improve to at least 15th, right? They got to be middle of the pack if they want to be in that playoff discussion. I'm also going top 15 there. That one seems like a blanket one. 77% of voters picked top 15. Only 22% of voters said that they would finish 16th or below that threshold. All right, now
added pace, more shooting.
Absolutely. Now, where will the Rockets rank defensively this season? This one was a little bit more split down the middle. Do you think they'll finish top 5 or 6th or below, Ben?
6th or below for many of the same reasons. I think the pace will make it a little tougher to defend at a truly top 5 level.
6th or below as well.
Okay. I'm going to be a little bit more bullish than you guys. I think they've got what it takes to finish as a top 5 defense. They were a top 5 defense for a really good chunk of last year. Like, we got to remember that they were literally like the number 1 defense in the NBA for a little while. They were number 2 for a little while, right there next to the Boston Celtics. And it wasn't until later in the season that they started to fade a little bit.
But again, that was 5. The slower half-paced offense.
It was.
Now they're going after offensive rebounds. I think there's some things that'll subtract.
Fine. This is bold take number 3. Then they're gonna finish as a top 5. Now, again, 54% of voters thought they would finish 6th or below, and then 46% of voters thought they would finish top 5. So that one was split very closely down the middle. Now, the next one that I have that's also a very, very split down the middle. This one was like almost dead even. Will Alperen Sengun average over or under 23.5 points this season? Madison.
Over.
Ooh, okay. That was a really confident over. Ben?
Free throw merchant.
Under.
Oh, okay. All right. So we got free throw merchant over. Ben said under. Why are you saying under, Ben?
Just because there's so many other playmakers and shooters on this team now.
Okay. I'm inclined to go with Madison on this one. I think if the foul rate, if that free throw merchant ability is real, then I don't see how he doesn't just add even just a couple more points to his average this season. The voters thought 55% thought less than 23.5 points per game. 44% thought more than 23.5 points per game. So that one was super split down the middle.
I will say I think he gets to at least 6 assists per game because of that playmaking and shooting elsewhere.
Okay, all right, I like that one. This one is, I think, the most dead even of all the polls that I put together. 50.6% for one answer, 49.4% for the other answer. Will Alperen Sengun have a 46-plus point game, breaking his scoring record this season, Ben?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was confident. Madison?
Yes.
Ooh, I like it. We're gonna go for the triumvirate here, the trifecta. I'm gonna say yes as well. And we are aligned with 50.6% of the voters who said yes, he will have a 46 point or higher scoring game this season. But that one is literally right razor thin down the middle.
That's crazy.
And I think when you are a max guy, which he pretty much is with this contract, no, technically it's sub-max, come on, but we know how he's being treated. You have a longer leash when you're hot. He's going to be one of those guys now, when he has it going in a given game, they are going to feed him over and over again. So I think he cracks 50 in a game this year.
All right.
Can I add something to it?
Yeah, go for it.
As a bold prediction, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. Fourth bold prediction.
This is how Alperen Sengun is going to get that 46 points. He's going to have a game where he hits over 5 3-pointers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about the free throws.
The free throws are going to go. Free throws.
I thought he was going to say against Wemby.
Oh, that would he had the what was it against Wemby? 43? 45 against Wemby. Okay, my bad. So there we go.
I was 50 against him. No,
okay, hey, you know what? I'm all here for it, especially if it happens in the early part of the season, one of those 2 road games in San Antonio. That would be chef's kiss. All right, this one I feel like is going to be overwhelmingly easy. Jalen Green average over or under 22.5 points this season.
I think that's
over. I mean, he was at that level late last season, and we expect him to take another step in year 4, and he's going to get more minutes. He's going to get more usage. Well, I don't want to get more usage, but he's going to get more trust. Yeah, I think he's over.
Okay, Madison? You said that's hard.
Yeah, man, because to me, I'm thinking he's going to be around 22, But
I had 23. Right on the edge. Close.
Yeah. Right. 22 to 23. I think that's around where he's going to land. That's why it makes it really tough for me. But we're Rockets fans, man. We're going over.
There you go.
I'm gonna take the slight under, but I don't think it's gonna be by much. I think it's gonna be like 22.3, 22.4 something. I will say I think his efficiency skyrockets this season. I think it's gonna be like a super efficient, like hopefully, right? We're talking like 57, 58% true shooting, somewhere in that range, right? If the 3-point shooting is real, if the foul shooting is there, I think he can put it all together this season. I got one more in here that was a really interesting one. Here we go. This will be a fun one, and it kind of goes back to us talking about, it's the inverse of us talking about Amin Thompson closing games from our previous episode, but how many games will Amin Thompson start this season? 46% of voters chose the number 15 to 27 games, that he would start 15 to 27 games. 33% of the voters chose 28 to 40 games, and then 11% of voters chose 41 plus, and then another 11% chose 14 or less. So I kind of split it up by 4 different brackets. Where are you guys going with this?
Backs do we have?
Like 16.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna go 15 to 27.
Okay.
I'll go 28 to 40 simply because I don't know if he'll get a permanent starting spot, but he might literally be the first choice at every position when there's an injury because of how versatile he is. Even if he's not technically a center, okay, well, you slide Jabari to center potentially. So I just think there's going to be 28 to 40 games somewhere with injuries. There always are. And he might literally be at the front of the line pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, I think I'm actually leaning more towards that final number there, the highest number, the 28 to 40 or whatever it was that I had. 28 to 40. I'm not going to go 41 plus. I think that's a little aggressive.
That might be a little ambitious.
40. Yeah, 28 to 40 is definitely where I'm.
Injury. Yeah,
I think that'd be sad if the starters miss 28 to 40 games, like as a collective, like you know what I mean. One of
guys resting games. I mean,
and back to backs. Yeah, I think it will.
It's a possibility for sure. Last one here before we get into a couple of our bold predictions to close things out. A couple more of our bold predictions to close things out. Where will Reed Sheppard finish in Rookie of the Year voting? First, second, third, or fourth, or lower?
Fourth.
Whoa.
I'll go third.
That's like the most negative take we've had across these 2 episodes.
It's realistic, man.
Yeah, he's just not going to get the
Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got third. He'll contribute to winning. He'll have some big games here or there. Back-to-backs will give him an opportunity to start on occasion or maybe at least play 20, 25 minutes. But I'll go third because there's going to be somebody, Zach Edey, someone that's a stats merchant just based on opportunity.
I'm going to go second, And I do think ultimately it's going to be Zach Edey. I think he's going to probably win Rookie of the Year because he's just going to have. But I think there's also a world where, like Madison was saying earlier, right? He's a rookie. Where he's going to hit a rookie wall. I don't know if Zach Edey's going to get like 30 plus minutes a night just because he's the de facto starter. I think there's a world where Zach Edey might only average like 22 to 25 minutes a night because they're still going to play Triple J at the 5 spot. They've got Brandon Clark to play at the 5 spot. They might go like uber small in certain lineups. I think there's a very realistic world where if Reed Sheppard can get up to in that like 15 to 18 minute a night range, and Zach Edey's only at like 22 to 24 minutes a night, that the discrepancy might not be as drastic in the counting stats. And if Reed is contributing to winning at a high level, then that's going to, but my dark horse candidate for Rookie of the Year is Matas Buzelis.
Especially if the Rockets are winning at, let's say they get off to a fast start because the schedule is relatively soft at the start of the year. If it looks like the Rockets are really tracking to potentially be, 45, even 50 plus wins, there is going to be a push from awards voters. This could play into all-star dynamics. It could also, end of season stuff like Rookie of the Year or all defensive teams or whatever it may be. The Rockets can potentially be a feel-good story if they far out kick their coverage the way we expect they will when it comes to, the 42.5, 43.5 over-under totals. If they are far exceeding projections, then that could give a little bit of a boost to those guys in competition for the awards, simply because people are going to want to reward this organization for doing so well and exceeding expectations.
Okay. Madison, what you got? You sound like you wanted to include one more thing.
Yeah, just quick. I think it'll be up to how many games Fred VanVleet ends up playing this year and how much the Rockets let Reed initiate the offense.
Okay, I can see that. Okay. All right. I want to go around the board here, and we're going to get one more bold prediction from each one of us before we close out the show. I'm happy to go first, but I will also gladly let you guys go first, and I'll take the very last one if you guys want. However we want to. Y'all want me to steer the bus for a second and tee it off?
It's up to you.
Do it.
All right. My bold prediction is that Amen Thompson finishes top 3 in both 6th Man of the Year voting and Most Improved Player of the Year. I'm not going to go so far as say he wins both of them or wins either of them, but I'm saying he finishes top 3 in both of those categories. That's my bold prediction.
That's interesting. That's a good one.
Mine might not be considered so bold because Jackson, you already teased to it, but I'm going to say Jalen Green averages at least 23 points a game on at least 56% true shooting and probably a decent bit above on both. I could see, 24 and 57 or 58 type splits, because for all the talk about, is he on or is he off? He's hot and he's cold. You can divide last season in 2. Part 1, part 2. At the midpoint of the year, the last 40 games, he was at 22, 4 and 4 on 56% true shooting, basically right in line with Anthony Edwards year 2. No, I'm not saying he's going to be Ant, but what I'm saying is that he is a little closer than the conventional narrative would have you believe. And so I think we know how seriously he took his body this offseason. It's clear the Rockets believe in him, as evidenced by the contract today. He's looked more comfortable preseason, not just on ball, but off. There's just a lot of little things. And then you look at, there's reasons to think that Jalen had the most bad habits to shake. It's not just the month of March. It's not just 10 to 15 games. No, the last 40 games, he was at 22, 4 and 4, 56% true shooting. So building onto that a little bit and getting a longer leash because he's earned more trust, playing better defensively plays into that as well. It is not very far for Jalen to get to, mid 20s points per game on mid to upper 50s true shooting percentage. He's not that far away, and I think it happens, and this contract is only going to give him a little more confidence to help make that happen.
All right, Madison, take us home.
All right, and this kind of ties into yours, Ben, because I believe you're right. But I think the way that Jalen gets to those point totals and those efficiencies is he's going to shoot 46% from 3 on catch and shoots.
Ooh,
on catch and shoot,
that's blistering.
Yeah. So 46%, 46 to 45% from 3 on catch and shoots, establishing himself as an off-ball player, right? And really spreading and really opening up the offense and really spreading the floor for the team. And this will allow him to play on and off the ball and get into rhythm and maintain his efficiency over the course of the year.
And shout out shooting guru Ben Sullivan, because boy, Jalen's shot mechanics look better than I've ever seen them. He looked clean in the preseason, and I think that's going to translate.
He's
And
really
also-
confident. Yeah.
and also a little-
I mean, that's one thing in the preseason. Look, open shots on your mechanics, it's going to translate, or it should. I mean, games are games, and those mechanics look really clean to me.
Got to also give a little credit to Coach Dash, right? He worked on him with the timing, the balance, the pace, and all that. And again, it looks like Jalen's taking that a little extra half second at times, right? To kind of steady himself, make sure he's got his base under him, lining his feet up, right? Getting, maybe even getting his hands on like the seams of the ball, whatever, just getting comfortable before taking those threes, where he's not swaying as much on his like spot up threes. So there's all these little things are all, kind of pooling together. And hopefully we get the best version of Jalen Green this season. We want to know, though, what are some of your bold predictions for this Rockets season? Let us know in the YouTube comments. You guys know the drill. Let everybody know where to track you down at. Ben, go first.
Yeah, Ben DuBose on Twitter, rocketswire.usatoday.com for daily coverage. And one last shout out. It was about this time a year ago, I believe it was Jonathan Fagan that had it, but one of our daily reporters that had John Lucas talking about year 4, not year 3, being the year for Jalen to take that leap. It sure looks like John Lucas knows what he was talking about. So that's why you should read coverage from outlets like Rockets Wire, The Chronicle, all the media covering this team on a daily basis. Sometimes you get tidbits like that end up looking very wise a year later.
Yeah, and you can catch me on X at Madman Leaks. Come talk Rockets basketball and NBA draft.
And that's going to do it for part 2 of our Houston Rockets preview series. I hope you enjoyed some of the bold predictions we had throughout the episode. But as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help our show is to listen every single day, like and subscribe on YouTube, and drop a comment while you're there. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.